بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have to continue our sessions on 40 Hadith. We finished Hadith number 3. Now we start Hadith number 4, which is about Kibr, about arrogance. The Hadith is starting from Imam Khomeini's chain of narration till he reaches Muhammad ibn Ya'qub al-Kulaini and Ali ibn Ibrahim and Muhammad ibn Isa and Yunus and Aban and Hakim. قال سألت أبا عبد الله عليه السلام عن أدنى الإلحاد. Hakim says, I asked Imam Sadiq alayhi salam about the lowest level of ilhad. Ilhad means like lack of faith, atheism. Mulhid is the one who doesn't believe in God. So what is the lowest level of lacking faith, infidelity? Imam alayhi salam said, Innal kibra adna. To have kibr is the lowest level of kufr. So it means that even if a believer has kibr, he has some level of ilhad. Of course, if someone is denying the truth altogether, denying God, and at the same time, for example, has other vicious qualities, can go higher and higher in the ladder of ilhad. But the lowest is in the extent that make you part of them is that you have kibr. So what is kibr? And kibr is different from takabbur, although they come from the same root, but inshallah we will explain the difference. And kibr is also different from ujb, although as we said in the hadith number 3, ujb leads to kibr, but they are not the same, they are different. So what is kibr? Kibr is a condition for someone which relates to his nafs, his soul. So it's a quality of the soul, like all the virtues and vices. It's a condition for the soul that you think you are better than other people. You think you are superior to other people. Maybe other people or someone else. Inshallah, we will talk about different types of kibr. Na'udhu billah, sometimes a person may think he is superior to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is superior to the Prophet. He is superior to religion of God. Or he can think he is superior to someone ordinary or to whole humanity. There are different types of kibr. But basically, in kibr, there is always a kind of comparison. In ujb, self-admiration, you are too much happy with yourself and pleased with yourself. It doesn't necessarily involve comparison. But in kibr, you think you are better than someone else. And then when you feel you are superior, you do things that express that condition which is in your heart or soul. Those actions that express that hidden quality are takabbur. So the outcomes of kibr, the effects or consequences of kibr is takabbur. For example, maybe I look at other people in the way that shows I feel I am better than them, superior to them. I look at them in that way. Or when I sit with takabbur. When I speak, when I listen, when I shake, for example, hand, there can be many signs which are consequences and indeed expressions of kibr. So, ujb is a quality that is about how someone thinks about himself or herself. Then, if someone has ujb, is pleased too much with himself or herself, it leads to thinking that then you are better than another person or other people or God. Because you would not think you are better unless you believe in some quality in yourself that you don't see it in other people. Yeah, no one would say, you are better than me, but I am superior to you. Normally, people, what they do, they see qualities in themselves that they don't have. It's very interesting. We can see generosity in ourselves when we don't have it, and we cannot see generosity in someone who has it. We can see kindness in ourselves when we don't have kindness, and we cannot appreciate someone who is really kind. And then we think we are better than them. So sometimes people who are very selfish, maybe a husband or wife, very selfish, but then complains, my spouse is not kind, is very selfish. But God knows that actually he or she is the selfish one. The other person is a nice person, is a kind person, is a humble person. So, ujb is to be very much pleased with ourselves. Maybe you live alone, or anyway, you are not necessarily comparing yourself with anyone else. It's about how you feel about yourself, how you assess yourself. Then it can lead to kibr, a kind of arrogance, a kind of feeling you are superior to someone else or to other people or to God. And then when it is expressed by actions, including gesture, words, that is called takabbur. So takabbur is expression of kibr. And kibr is a result of ujb. So this is a beautiful way that Imam Khomeini explains these things and makes distinction between them. He says, of course, you have to know these psychic qualities are very delicate, and sometimes it's very difficult to make distinction between them. And he says sometimes it can be controversial among the scholars, so we don't need to spend too much time if it is not clear for us. And the main thing is to refer to our own moral conscience and understand what issues are there. Then we start a discussion about degrees or ranks or levels of kibr, like ujb. If you remember, in Ujb, we mentioned there are different levels. Those levels apply here, but there can be also extra levels that we didn't discuss in Ujb because that was not very important, but for Kibr is very important to mention. But first we start with those 6 ranks that we mentioned about Ujb, which apply also here. As you remember, we said Ujb can be with respect to aqa'id. It can be with respect to attributes, sifat, and it can be with respect to actions. And in each of these 3 can be because someone has good aqa'id, good qualities, or good actions, or because someone has the opposite. And unfortunately, is pleased with himself because of the opposite. For example, he doesn't have good aqa'id, he's kafir, for example, but he's happy with that. He says, oh, I am better than mu'mineen. Or someone doesn't have good qualities and then makes mockery of virtuous people and thinks, his bad qualities are sign of being more clever or better. Or actions. Sometimes people, for example, don't say prayer, don't go to Hajj, don't fast, don't observe hijab, don't give khums, don't do saliyah rahim, don't serve, and they think by not doing this they are better. And those who do these things, don't understand, they are naive, and so on and so forth. So these things can be for Ujb, these 6 types or degrees. They can also be for Kibr. Means you compare it yourself with other people, or you just think about yourself. Then Imam Khomeini says, sometimes Kibr is because of Ujb, which is internal, the way you feel about yourself, the way you evaluate yourself. And sometimes can be because of external things. For example, nasab. He says, I belong to this family, a noble family, a well-known family. My father, my mother, my grandfather, my grandmother, my grand-grandfather, was so and so. So I am better than you. So sometimes people, because of their nasab, their genealogy, they feel they are better than others. Sometimes because of hasab, because of their social position. For example, he says, I have this position in the community, or, I have this position in the society, I am a governor, or I am, president, I am minister, I am member of parliament, things like this. So I am better than you or other people. Sometimes because of money. Sometimes even because of siyada. Because someone is Sayyid, is a progeny of the Prophet, then he thinks he's better than other people. Or riyasat, because of leadership that he has or position that he has. So sometimes you feel you are better because you think you have some qualities that other people don't have, like knowledge, like taqwa, generosity, virtues. Sometimes you think you are better because of your genealogy or your position or your money and this type of things. So we have to talk about these things, inshallah, little by little. But the first thing that we have, the first chapter, is about another classification of Ujb. One way of mentioning the levels was that 6 things that we mentioned. But we can classify it in another way. And that is to say, towards whom you express your superiority, or you believe that you are superior in your nafs. You think you are better, and then you express it. Towards whom? Because it has to involve comparison. We said always might not have comparison, but Kibr and Takabbur must have comparison. So, the first person towards whom we may have Kibr, na'udhu billah, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. Unfortunately, human beings, despite being totally, entirely dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they may be arrogant in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's very ugly and unacceptable to be arrogant, even with respect to people, let alone to creator of us and people. But unfortunately, this is possible, and this is what you find in the people who deny God, or people who claim to be God. They claim some kind of lordship for themselves. Like Pharaoh, for example, who said, "Ana rabbukumul a'la," I am your highest Lord. So sometimes people may have Kibr in comparison to God, the Almighty. Sometimes it's with respect to al-anbiya wal-awliya, prophets and imams and saints, holy people, friends of God. For example, the Quran talks to us about people who didn't believe, who didn't follow two people who were sent by God to them, and they said, "Anu'minu libasharayn mithlina." Should we believe in two human beings who are like us? In Surah Mu'minun, verse 47. Or some people said in the time of the Prophet, لولا نزل هذا القرآن على رجل من القريتين عظيم. Why this Quran has not been sent down to a man from these two cities, Ta'if and Mecca, who is great? Surah Zukhruf, verse 31. Of course, the Prophet ﷺ was the greatest person in that society, but they mean by great, by azim, someone who has worldly position, someone who has money and servants and horses and camels. So they ask why God didn't choose someone who has such position to send him his Quran. So this is the sign of Kibr in those people with respect to messenger of God. And Imam Khomeini says this has been happening throughout the history. Even today, we see some people who are inside the Ummah, they may have this arrogance towards some friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, towards some successors to the Prophet, and so on and so forth. The third is to feel you are superior to commands of God. Allah has said you must perform Hajj, but you say, no, I don't want to go Hajj. I don't want to put a dress of ihram. I have to have, my formal and official dress. I don't want to be just putting, for example, 2 towels or 2 pieces of white dress on me. I don't want to say prayer and, prostrate, put my forehead on the soil, for example. Or sometimes Imam Khomeini says even some mu'mineen and some, people of knowledge, like some students, some seminarians, if in the mosque they are said, to say azan, they feel this is too little for them. Sometimes people feel embarrassed because they are shy That's another issue. Of course, you shouldn't be shy to recite azan, but sometimes people, they are not shy. They think this is too little for me. I am alim, or I am, a well-known person. Why I should say azan? Or something which is very important is about accepting the truth from other people. For example, suppose we are 2 or 3 people, we have discussion, mubahatha. Those who do mubahatha, they know. Sometimes you see your partner is right. But are you brave enough, and do you have the courage to accept the opinion of your friend when you disagreed first, but now you realize he is right or she is right? Sometimes we are not able to accept the truth from someone who is at our level or someone who is lower than our level. But if it is said by someone who is higher, we may accept. For example, if my teacher says, if a great alim says, I accept. But if my friend or classmate says, I don't accept. Imam Khomeini says, this is all problematic. Even if you accept from your teacher or senior scholar, but you don't accept from your friend, this is altogether problematic. You cannot say, okay, I am 50% all right because I accept it when it comes from my teacher, but I have 50% problem because I don't accept from people who are at my level or lower. But Imam Khomeini says no. Maybe this means that you are altogether arrogant. You are not a seeker of the truth, but you don't find it right for yourself not to take it and accept it from your teacher. If you were really a seeker of truth, it shouldn't have mattered to you whether it comes from your teacher or your student, your classmate. So don't think you are necessarily a humble person and a seeker of truth because you take it from your teacher only. Another thing is sometimes some scholars don't accept to teach lower or junior talaba or students. For example, I only teach Dars Kharaj, or I only teach Asfar when it comes to philosophy. I don't teach lower levels of fiqh or falsafa, or for example muqaddamat. I only teach the top ones. Of course, when there are enough teachers, it's better everyone teaches the best subject that they can teach and the highest level that they can teach. But what if we already have people who can teach the higher level, but we don't have enough qualified people to teach the lower levels? The late Ayatollah Quddusi rahmatullah alayh, when they started the Hawza of Muntaziriya, which is later known as Haqqani, so he was always teaching very basic books, even sometimes books which were not directly related to Hawza sciences, like Gulistan of Sa'di, which is on Persian literature. Although he was a mujtahid, and he had studied also philosophy with Allama Tabatabai, and he was very respected scholar, but he was teaching very low level, basic level. So arrogance can sometimes happen in this. I don't teach in a school what I teach in university. You have to see where you can be more useful. Maybe you are more useful in university, maybe you are more useful in a school. It shouldn't matter. What is important is where you are more useful and when you are needed more. So the same is about also Salatul Jama'ah. Sometimes if people from a small community offer me to be their imam or resident alim, I don't accept. So their mosque is too little, their community is small. But if it is a big mosque and big community, I accept. Why? Is it really because you want to serve more? Or is it because you are after fame, after reputation? You feel bad that people say, oh, you only lead prayer for 20 people? You could lead prayer for 200 people. So we have to be very careful. And Imam Khomeini says that things here become so subtle that you may not realize that your actions are because of Kibr, unless you really try to build yourself and you are very careful. You examine yourself carefully. Otherwise, it's very difficult. Another type of Kibr is not about God's commands for Hajj or Salat or for teaching or leading prayer. It can be with respect to people, especially ulama. There is an alim, I don't want to listen to him. Maybe I am an alim, maybe I am a lay person, but to be arrogant in front of alim is, Imam Khomeini says, its harm and mischief is worse than any other person, because you are resisting against knowledge and truth. Or sometimes it is against poor people. Sometimes it is about ordinary people. You want to be first everywhere, and you want to sit in the best place. So we have to be very careful. And then Imam Khomeini says sometimes it's very difficult to make distinction between humility and flattering. Tawadhu wa tamalluq. You think you are humble, but indeed you are not humble. You are flattering someone who has position because you want to gain position or you want to be close to that person. If you are not really humble, if you were humble, you would be humble with everyone. So to make distinction between tawadhu and tamalluq, humility and flattering, is very difficult. Or takabbur wa ta'abbi. So sometimes a person is arrogant. Sometimes a person is a dignified person. These are very close, but they are different. Mutakabbir doesn't want to sit everywhere, doesn't want to speak or, eat with people because he feels he's superior. But sometimes there's a person who is humble but has honor and dignity. He wouldn't do everything. He wouldn't mix every type of people. But he wouldn't think he's superior, just he is very careful about his behavior. So it's two different things. So we have to be working hard in first examining ourselves and then correcting ourselves and disciplining ourselves. Inshallah, in the next session, we talk about the next chapter, which is what is the major cause for takabbur. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Thank you very much.
You are welcome.